Well, there you are again, Charlie Greer Podcast. I do this every day. Today, Delphi murders, corruption? Question mark. Comment below. Before we do, please like, share, and subscribe. That's the best way to support the channel. If you do want to support the channel, the information's in the description for Cash App. My handle is Charlie Greer Podcast, and for Zelle, it's my email, which is in the description. Let's do this. First, pray for Abby and Libby. Pray for their family. Pray for law enforcement. Pray for everybody. Spread the blessings. Pray for the YouTubers that are doing deep dives. To start off, I'm not a true crime podcaster. I try to say this anytime I do some kind of true crime podcast or episode, I should say. That's not, if you're looking for I'd suggest like Sleuth Intuition, Ruckus Rocks, Unresolved Crime. There's a bunch of them out there. Those are my favorites. So, my humble opinion, I think they do the best. So, corruption? Question mark. I was talking to Ruckus Rocks last night, and we were talking about how there can't be a blanketed corruption. Okay, everything is no. And I was telling we both had each side, and what I was saying was pre-crime corruption is what usually happens, meaning leading up to the crime. And then once the crime is, people realize it's a crime. You got to understand that like crime is weird. Criminals are like, there's two, literally this is my humble opinion and speculation, assumption. But I lived in LA for 24 years. I saw a lot of crime, criminals, and so criminals, it's not a crime until it's done. And then sometimes it's not a crime until they get caught. That's how they're thinking. That's not me. That's just how I've seen how criminals think. And then corruption, it's easier to do it pre-crime, behind the scenes. It's that once the crime is, people realize what's going on. There's a crime. Here we are. We're researching it. It is harder to do your corruption after that. And Ruckus Rocks agreed, because you got, say if you got a crooked cop, are there crooked cops? Yes. Are there cops that murder? Of course. People are people. It goes back to the Roman time. Before that, it's ancient, people are, but once the crime is done, you got to keep your mouth shut. You got to go back into the shadows. You can't corrupt. How many people are in that, even that small county we're talking about? Because you have to file clerks and the coroner and all these other people. Do you have to, you think are in on it? No, that's not, this is not Murder, She Wrote. You know what I mean? And we agreed on certain, see, that's what I like about, we can agree to disagree most of the time, but then we agree on certain things. Because I do think there's some kind of corruption. I think, pardon me, I think there's a bigger sting. They've admitted themselves that Anthony Shott's account popped off the biggest, investigation in the history of Indiana. Are they are they using a fish to get a bigger fish? When you fish, you get a small fish and put a hook on that to grab the big fish. Is that what they're doing? Is that why it's taking so long? Is that why it's so, and then they weren't prepared. Local, how many people in that town? 3,000 people they just weren't prepared for something this kind of complicated and I'm sure tricky. That's involves like cybercrime. Then you have to go through that. And you have to process of elimination. You've got to who's on the trail, this, that, and everybody you have to go through. The process of elimination, it could be brutal because you have to look into everybody. You have to go through everybody. And I talked about this in a previous podcast that like the sheriff at the time, Tobe Lesenby, he admitted he was a suspect. Then you got to ask yourself, why did they suspect him? Was it just the process of elimination? They thought maybe law enforcement involved had to go through everybody. And then who would do it? I don't think it was his local cronies, like the local police. He's the sheriff, so he puts people in his position, his friends. They used to work at the prison together or whatever. They played football in high school. You know what I mean? That's what you do. Even in bands and the art show, you take your friends along. It's the same thing in law enforcement. So it's like, who would, suspect him? I don't think it was the local people. It had to be either the FBI or the Indiana State Police. And maybe it was through the process of elimination. The other police officers have not admitted they were suspects or suspected early on. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe they just don't want to tell people. Like, I don't want people that then because people would take that, these YouTubers, and like go down the rabbit hole. You know, people are. And I always go back to that 2019 presser. That's the weirdest presser I've ever seen. You know, they're shifting gears. He might be in the room. Huh? Like he in the room. Well, go get him then. You know, shit. They know more than they have to know. And they have to keep stuff, you know, close to the chest. I get that too. It's an open investigation. Well, it's an open, you know, it's already going to court. You know, so but as far as corruption, comment below. What do you think? Do you think that I'm kind of on, is it behind pre-crime corruption? See, that's the easiest way to corrupt is once you get past that crime is done, and then you have to see, then you're dealing with a lot more people, a lot more officials, this, that, and the other. Well, how are you going to keep people from talking? You know, even in that county, I bet, like everybody, see, not just the police, but people that in law enforcement, the file clerks, this, that, you know, there's probably 110 people more, whatever, that are dealing with the police department and this, that, and the other thing. You think that they've got some kind of conspiracy to, no, that's just, that's a movie. That's a, I know people are corrupt. I think there's some corruption around here, even not involved with the crime. I think that what happens when you're doing corrupt shit or this, that, and the other, well, it'll spark up an investigation that might look into other things that's in your personal life, whatever, maybe not even involved into the crime, or you know people that maybe were involved, the CIs. I think there's a lot of confidential informants involved in this. I think Keegan Klein is a confidential informant. I think they all are, to be honest with you. I think they all are. Him, friend one, friend two, the cousin, everybody. Perhaps his dad even. I don't know. Again, this is just myself. That's how that works. You know, if he was that close, again, he lived with his father when this was going on. They both went to Vegas. The law enforcement admit they know someone else was using the account on different devices. Again, I don't know. Small towns, people know a lot about each other and their secrets, this, that, and the other. I'm under the belief that they should have searched Ron Logan's house immediately. They found 2 dead girls on his property. Hey, sorry, bro. We got to look. We got to get in there. You know, that night, wake up the judge. Something. Say, like, we got to get it. You had to. Why do you wait a month? I'm not saying he had anything to do with it. Again, process of elimination. Nope, it's not this. Nope, it's not this. Nope, it's not that. So you can pull the onion layers away and you get to the source of who did this crime. That's when you start finding if there is corruption. Now, granted, could there be corrupt people within that investigative? Of course. There could be layers to that too, and levels to that. Like, say, simple, not even corruption, but they would cover up things. Like, say if you work in law enforcement and you're known as a stand-up guy and you're married and you have kids, but you got a side piece, you know, you're having an affair. You know, these simple things happen, you know. Well, then it looks like you're, you know what I mean? It even looks worse. You're covering up for something that's really not involved. But that's how life is. That's how crime is. It covers other things that not necessarily involve the murder or crime, but they're covering their ass for this shit they do in their personal life. You know, say if you're on the down low, you're bisexual, you want people to know, and you're like, oh shit, there's somebody's involved. Wait a minute, that's going to expose my secret lifestyle. See, there's nothing wrong with that. I have LGBT fans and family and friends. I'm not trying to point the finger. It's just that that's how human nature is. That's what people do. So maybe then you'd want not people to know. See, in a bigger city, nobody care if you were in a small. You want to keep that? I'm a married man. Wouldn't want to know that you're a swinger or whatever it is. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it is. I'm just using this as an example how certain people will cover for themselves or even others, and it doesn't have anything to do with the crime. Technically, it's corruption. You know, I think that happens a lot more than people. There is no conspiracy of like, we're hooded Satanists who are in the wood. Now, that's hard to, not saying that don't happen. It's just that it's, again, you got to go back to Occam's razor. Like what the simplest explanation is usually the truth. You know, I do have some problems with one, you know, why Tobe was suspected, why they didn't search Ron Logan's property sooner. Why does Bridge Guy he's short and stocky. Now he was taller and this, that, and the other. And he was 6 foot. Now he's 5'4". Is it human behavior, human mistakes? Did they lose that fingerprint? Did they corrupt the video at the gas station? I don't know. I don't know. That's why I'm fascinated with this case, because it's just all over the place. It's like a Rubik's Cube, a game of Clue. Agatha Christie would be blushing about how the mystery that's in, because it seems like the Idaho 4, those 4 people that were murdered a couple months back, they were right spot on. They got it done pretty quick. Well, this has been kind of lollygagging around for 6-7 years or whatever. Could have been that they weren't prepared. But then the FBI came in. So did the state police. See, that's another thing I can't wrap my head around. Was there some diabolical scheme? Was somebody that smart to get I mean, again, nobody heard any screams, and nobody. It is weird. It is strange. I listening to the interview with the guy. I think his name was Eric Williams. He was a searcher that night, and he mistakenly slipped up a bit. He said, the girl, he almost said victims, which is people are missing. You're thinking the worst. You're tired. You worked all day. I get that. Then he's done a few interviews, but he said some crazy shit. Like he said he saw, he didn't go, he was right across from the creek, right across from where they were found. He just didn't go over there. And what he saw was 4-wheeler tracks that were really prominent. You could see them. They looked fresh, and they went up and they went down. And he was kind of kicking himself that he didn't go over there. And he also said he found like a tree full of like animal bones and skulls and stuff. That could be kids out there. Who knows? Again, it's weird. This case is strange. Also, I did an episode way back a few months ago called The Oracle of Delphi. There's something about Delphi. That word is strange. I suggest you watch that. Again, it's just my opinion. All through time, there's been strange stuff involving underage girls that has to do with the name Delphi and murder and stuff like that. It is weird. It could be a coincidence. I'm not saying, again, corruption is hard to do when it's across the board. It's hard to, because other people, they don't know who you are. They're thinking, hey man, you got to keep your mouth shut. They'll snitch you out. I'm talking about people in law enforcement. They don't know if you're doing something crooked. They want to, hey, go tell. They're not blanketly gonna just, oh, yep, I'll do that. That's not how it is. Especially if you're going around killing people, you're not gonna be too popular. Okay. What do you think? Comment below. What corruption do you think? What conspiracy do you think? Is there? Again, I'm under the mind that it was pre-crime corruption, if there was. And then also things you want to hide in your own personal life that had nothing to do with the crime, but it'll open up, it'll open up a can of words in people's like personal life. Maybe there's it's simple as like, maybe there's an illegal gambling, like people get together and they, gambling's illegal, but they're just drinking, having fun, smoking their cigars, gambling at someone's house, whatever. But then if it's they don't want to allow, so they'll cover up themselves, because they know they're looking into all this stuff. See, they're not just looking into the Delphi murders. They're looking at any kind of, you got to turn over every stone. So I think that's what it is. I think it's just like what a lot of towns do. Swinger parties, gambling, stuff like that they just want people to know about. You know what I mean? It isn't diabolical. It has nothing to do with murder. It's just like, damn, if my wife found out that I think that it's simple. Just human behavior, psychology. We're all guilty of certain things. I used to be a wild man. I ran the streets. I mean, I know, everybody's got secrets. What do you think? Perhaps comment. Do you think it could be? And the more time goes by, we'll find this out. Strange that after they searched the creek or the river, whatever that was, and they did a thorough search out there for like 5 weeks, 6 weeks. 2 weeks later, they arrested Richard Allen. Did they find something in the? Obviously, they did. And Keegan, Klein, it seems like he is rolling over. Why hadn't he been prosecuted? Because, well, he might be he might be involved. Without even know he was involved. See, he was selling that account and selling these things. People use fake profile names, and he wouldn't know. And it's not like they're meeting at the McDonald's, like, how you doing? And using real names or something like that. You know what I mean? Cybercrime is weird and tough, and especially if you don't have like a cybercrime unit and you're a small town, 3,000 people, you're just usually dealing with like giving tickets and DUIs and drug busts. And, you're not really a double homicide, and it's got all these layers. It might look that like, you have to pull other people in, again, FBI and state police and stuff like that, which then looks more, pardon me, it is kind of like right away, there was a big presence of law enforcement and government agencies. Or did they think it was connected to something bigger that they were investigating already? And did it tie into, wait a minute, these guys are CIs, but they're also involved in this and that, again, speculation, my humble opinion, assumption. I don't know. I feel like something is, and we might find this out during the, I've said before, I think that it won't be solved. Somebody will plead out. I think Richard Allen might plead out. So then they can seal that case and then nobody will ever know. And, again, it is strange. It is, I don't want to point the finger at anybody. I mean, I know how, it's easy for us to be like, oh, law enforcement, man, they're dumb, they're stupid, they don't know how to do their job. Well, you try it, shit. Especially the guys on the street, pounding the pavement. And they have other cases to deal with. I get it. You'd have to have a special. And didn't they start a special unit, a different building? Then they go to France and stuff, probably through that account, it was social. People, especially in a small town, did someone borrow Keegan's phone and didn't he, or did he have other phone? I mean, obviously he had multiple phones. He was sending money. He was collecting these things, these images. Could he have been catfished? The catfish could have been catfished. I've talked about that. Months ago, I did an episode about that. Again, it's hard to wrap your mind around. And then you start going down those rabbit holes. It might be simpler than we think. It's just that our inquiring minds is, everybody's guilty of that, but we have to, certain facts we have to, but then again, it's so weird. Like I always thought, like, is Bridge guy even was that planted evidence? See, people plan evidence too. That's a thing. You can't get your head. It happens. I'm not saying it did in this case. It's just that, and that's through the process of elimination. They have to go through that. Maybe they already know it wasn't, or it was, or who, Why did it take so long when that guy came forward immediately, Richard Allen? Why did it take him 6 years for it to find him? It's strange. Maybe it was a misfiling. Again, human behavior. You're tired at work. You're thinking about other things. You got other stuff in your life. Maybe you're a newbie. Maybe you're green, and maybe it was a series of mistakes that people made. There's nothing about conspiratorial about it. It's just that they're maybe not properly trained, or they're tired, or they've been sick that week, or whatever. They're dealing with other things too. It's not just that one thing they're dealing with. They might have to file 20 things that day. And, shit just fell in the crack. I don't know. Comment below. What do you think? I don't think that there is. Okay, for one, there is a bigger sting. So, but would that involve law enforcement? I don't think so. It would involve perps, Also, it's tricky. Like, say if they use CIs. See, that's how they solve crime. You gotta use confidential informants. If they suspect somebody might be involved, well, then that's a different investigation, and you have to, again, the police officers might not be corrupt. It's just this scumbag CI that they've been dealing with is a criminal. So it's going to make them look bad. They have to use criminals to catch criminals. That's what they do. It's weird. It's a scary game that they play. But in this world we live in, that's what you have to do. And not just Delphi, every police officer. Uh, I suggest watching The King of the City. It stars like Treat Williams, about this special drug unit in Manhattan, and how over time they eventually they got a little corrupt, and it has to do with they saw prosecutors that became federal judges, and these people were they were setting up cases, snitching people out, yet they weren't being rewarded. Yet these lawyers were becoming huge, big, and then they turned around and tried to weed out it's just and at the end, I shouldn't say what happened at the end, but at the end they wouldn't press charges on certain, because they knew they were good cops. It's just that like 20 years of dealing with that stuff they're going to do. A lot of it had to do with it's against the law to give a confidential informant drugs, even if they're a druggie. But if you need to do a sting or something and the guy's dope sick, well, you got to give him a little bit of dope. I mean, that's a lot of it was like that. So maybe there's something that that's what I'm thinking. I think that's things that you and I might do too. You just never know until you're there. I'm not saying I would. I'm not saying it did happen. It's just that it's weird. Law enforcement it's weird. So are criminals. It's strange. The world of crime is very strange. There's a lot of not rhyme or reason. They're not like, they'll plot out a little thing, but then they have to cover up and then lie and do another cover and this, that. I mean, they're hanging people out to dry and set people up and plant evidence. And maybe that's what they're going through. Does it seem like Richard Allen is like a cyber wizard? Like obviously again, I think something has to do with this Anthony Schutz account. I do. I think something is involved. Keegan Klein's involved somehow. I think they made a mistake not, searching Ron Logan's property or house. They should have done it immediately. Just because in his backyard, which is huge, I get it, he owns land. But again, the process of elimination, you got to go, sorry, bro, but hey, we found these 2 victims on your property. It's all weird. We need to call the judge, get up, sequester him. And, maybe they did, but they didn't. Again, it took them, I think, a month to search his property. Maybe they had to go through certain channels. I don't know. Again, I'm not law enforcement. I'm not even a true crime podcaster. I'm all over the place. I'm just fascinated with this case. Again, there's better people out there you can go check out if you want a deep dive and all the records and this and spawning windows and all that. I don't do that. But my gut feeling tells me that there's something's afoot. I don't know what it is. Again, I think that there's certain things in people's lives that they don't want people to know. That's just a thing. So they'll cover up for themselves just not to be exposed for their personal lives. That has nothing to do with a murder. It's really, and honestly, some of it's not really a crime. It's just in their personal lives. That is everywhere. I don't think you can even stop that. Everybody's human. We all make mistakes. We all do things. We all have secrets. We all this, that, and that. But when you're in law enforcement, you're supposed to toe the line and this, that, and I'm sure they do. It's just that, could be, perhaps. We shall see. Hopefully, if I think there's someone else involved with Richard Allen. I think they know this too. You would think that they'd already snatched him up, but it's strange. What do you think? Comment below. Again, pardon me. Again, please like, share, and subscribe. That's the best way you can support the channel. Just tell somebody about me. Share me on whatever it is you get. And if you do want to support the channel, which I'd appreciate, the information's in the description for Cash App. My handle is charliegreerpodcast. And in Zelle, it's my email. The email is in the description. And hopefully we shall see. Hopefully this won't linger on forever. Let me know what you think. But I do this every day. I'll be back tomorrow. I love y'all. Be blessed. Cheers.